Hello everyone, it's a beautiful day here at the Gem Foundation Food Garden. Craig busy watering there, a new bed that we've created in the background, and Julius helping us with wood chip. Julius is our right hand man. He has been so faithful in stewarding the original garden. He even created additional beds outside of the shade netted area that you can see here behind me. So he's really demonstrated the principle of stewardship, taking what is entrusted to him and just making it more. So what we've done here along this fence line is just to dump a layer of compost in which we're going to sow directly. We are seeding some, I don't know if you can see that, cosmos seeds, alyssum, poppies, just a variety of water-wise, water-saving plants that will not be for the soup kitchens, but just a variety of flower, colorful plants that will be a great show as people drive into the property. They'll just see this beautiful color. And I've used some of our orange cosmos seeds from last season or earlier this year, mixed it with some of the pink and purple varieties, so it should be really a show of color when it germinates. And on top of the compost layer, we are just going to dump some wood chip. So hope you enjoy today's video. I'm simply going to take a pinch of the seeds in my fingers, and you'll see that there's some long seeds. That's the cosmos seed, and then you've got smaller tiny little seeds. So I'll make sure that I get a good mix of that, and I'm simply going to sprinkle all along this bed. There's no pattern here, I didn't make holes, I'm simply sprinkling as I'm going along, and we'll wait and see what comes up. On top of this, we're just going to dump wood chip, and I'll step on the wood chip to make sure that the seeds make proper contact with the soil, that there's no gaps, air gaps between the seed and the soil, but they should germinate just fine, even though they're not buried underneath the ground. They will be covered by the wood chip. For those of you not familiar with the term mulch, mulch is just anything that we use, any substrate we use to cover the surface of the soil. Now we prefer using wood chip, but anything really to cover your soil is considered a mulch, even plastic. And I know plastic is not ideal, but if you have nothing else to cover the soil and create that barrier between the surface of the soil and the sun, then we sometimes use plastic. So wood chip, as you can see, they've started there on the end. It's the lighter color, and they'll cover this whole bed with the wood chip mulch. Wood chip is a great source of carbon. We want to put carbon back into the soil where it belongs, take it from the air. We call that carbon sequestration. And we have termites in the area where we live, so termites are great in that sense that they take dead organic matter, in this case wood chip, and they take it down into the tunnels where they break it down even further, and thus releasing carbon back into the soil. So we don't consider termites as an issue. We actually consider them as part of the balanced ecosystem, and they help us greatly in the process of carbon sequestration. So what are the options if you don't have access to wood chip? I've mentioned plastic, so that would be a black plastic or tarpaulin of some sorts that you cover the soil with. You can also use stone. Stone can be a barrier. We've used the bark of trees. In fact, I'll show you a source of tree bark. And I know that nurseries sell tree bark. I'm not sure if it's synthetic or real. It never looks like the real deal to me. But we have a lot of acacia trees on our property, and Some of them have died, fallen over, and this is just the tree bark coming loose. You can see some termite damage there as well on the inside. But even taking bark like this and placing that on top of the soil surface to prevent direct sunlight from shining on the soil. So if you don't have access to wood chip and you don't like the idea of plastic and stone as mulch options, you can also use grass clippings. That's a great source of mulch. So here you can see some grass clippings. They've dried out already, but even fresh clippings will do just fine. When we cut grass, we are not uprooting the grass, so we are not planting more grass in our vegetable garden beds by throwing the grass clippings as a mulch layer. So that's safe to use, and in this case there was some compost on the grass, so when they cut the grass and they raked it together, it came with a little bit of compost as well. And the white, I don't know if you can see it, it's a bit of a grey shimmer to it. That's just some wood ash that we chucked in this mix as well. And this is also great mulch, free mulch. So if you don't have grass but your neighbor has grass, maybe offer to mow the lawn for them and take away those grass clippings for your garden. Another option would be what we call chop and drop. So if you're harvesting, let's say, old lettuce or rocket or any leafy green, to simply cut off what you can and just leave it there in the bed. We would recommend you cover that with some form of barrier, maybe a hessian cloth, even frost cover, and just let it decompose naturally, but that's also a form of mulch. In this case we're using this plastic tarpaulin to cover our compost and prevent it from drying out. But the principle on a garden bed is exactly the same. You could potentially use this tarpaulin as a form of mulch. In fact, you'll notice it, a lot of strawberry farms make use of plastic covering their beds and just making holes in the tarpaulin where they need to plant their plants. Now, why is that important that we cover our soil and prevent the sun from hitting the soil directly? Well, if we want to have healthy food, we need healthy plants, and healthy plants come from healthy soil. So what makes soil healthy? And that is microorganisms that live in the soil. But they only live there and function there and thrive there under very special conditions. And we can facilitate and create those conditions for the microorganisms. So we do that by covering our soil with some type of mulch, because they don't like the direct sunlight. It takes away more water from the soil, and they don't like dry conditions. They prefer moist conditions. So by applying mulch on top of the soil, we are doing two things. We are preventing water evaporation, thus leaving the soil more moist, which the microorganisms prefer. The second thing is that we are also controlling somewhat, to some degree, the temperature of the soil. So microorganisms, of course, don't like the fluctuation in temperature. So we want to try and keep our soil temperature as constant as possible. And by covering the soil with mulch, we are preventing the soil temperature from rising as much as the air temperature. And then the same with our nighttime temperatures. When the air cools down and it becomes really cold, our soil temperatures stay more constant, more stable, because of the mulch that we have applied. Again, favoring the microorganisms. Whatever you do this summer, please mulch your soil. You can see we're spreading a thin layer of wood chip mulch on top of the bed. It really is, I would say, less than 2 centimeters thick. Well, normally we apply a thicker mulch, but right now we just want to cover the surface of the soil, and we also want to give the plant some time to germinate and push through the mulch layer. Once they have germinated and we can see some greenery in this bed, we will then come back and add some more mulch on top of this bed layer. The plan is, within a time span of a year, we want all of this garden to be covered with some form of mulch. I don't want to step on exposed soil anywhere. So that's our challenge.
Howdy partners, welcome to the Chem Garden. We are busy watering down the wood chip for moisture so the seeds have a great start.